Welcome back, everybody, once again to another episode of TJ Talks the News. Today is October 1st, 2021. Today is a very, very special day. A very, very important day, according to my daughter. You want to know why today is a very, very special day? Because today is Cash-In Day! Yay! They're teaching my daughter to be a wonderful consumer, a wonderful consumer, a wonderful consumer. I don't really have any more lyrics to that song, but yeah, that's the gist of it is, oh man. So whenever my son started going to public school, uh, we ran into some issues because the things that they're doing in their classrooms there are directly contrary to the things that I'm trying to accomplish in my classroom. I basically have to deprogram these students once they get to my classroom because K through 12 education has turned into a factory system. It is a fact, and maybe it was always a factory system, unless you're part of the elite. But a factory system just churning out workers, and they've convinced the people that this is what they're supposed to be doing. That the purpose of school is to get a job and to serve their corporate overlords. It's amazing how many people buy into that. Like, no, it's not about creating a society of critical thinkers who can fulfill their civic duties. No, that's absolutely not what it's about. It's about making sure they can run a cash register at Wendy's. And then go and buy the things that these companies want them to buy. But yes, today is Cash-In Day for my daughter, which, I don't know, I've never heard of this before. It's some kind of ticket-based system that they have at school where she earns the tickets, and then so they got a trainer. They give her the little treat, right? They tell her to sit, and she sits, and they give her a treat, and they tell her to fill out these worksheets, and they give her the treat. She was so excited. My daughter was so excited about school, and really kept up this positive attitude. And then, she got sick, so that may have been part of it. But about 2 weeks ago, she just started saying, yeah, how was school? I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. And then one day she finally did want to talk about it. You know what she said? She said, school is just a bunch of worksheets. That's all they want us to do. They just give us worksheets. Worksheets, worksheets, worksheets. And I felt so proud. So proud of this wonderful human being that I'm raising, but also deeply, deeply saddened that my 5-year-old can recognize that this is broken. It is so severely broken. And I don't want to blame the teachers, except I'm a teacher within this system as well. I'm not in the K through 12 system. I have probably a bit more freedom where I'm at, but still, my parents were a part of that system, and they were kick-ass teachers their entire careers. Maybe not my dad for like the last 5 years, but still. So it's still possible to be a good teacher, but I don't want to put I put like 1% of the blame on the teacher. All right, the rest of it goes elsewhere, spread out amongst various entities. But I can't help but lose faith in, like, I'm ready to pull my kids out of school at this point, from the failures surrounding COVID to the general treatment of students. Like when my son was being bullied, and they basically called him in and accused him of it being his fault, because he got angry when he was being bullied and had a bit of a meltdown, and so they felt that he should be disciplined for that. To the fucking worksheets, man. Ugh. I just want to puke every time I see a worksheet or a Scantron or any of this fucking bullshit. I told my students, I was like, okay, if I want to teach you how, speaking of which, I think that was maybe my children's school. Like, if I want to teach you something about writing, I'm going to have you write something. I'm not going to have you fill out a multiple choice exam. Right? If I want to teach you math, do a math equation. And and even better than that, design a problem with the students based on their real life experiences. Again, the level of dedication and time and effort that it takes and expertise that it takes to do something like that is a lot. So I don't really, hold it against teachers for not going all out. And I certainly don't go all out all the time. But man, it's just so fucking terrible. So bad. And then along with just the really terrible curriculum and the conditions that they're working in, then they try to do this stuff where they do these corporate partnerships. And so they're doing the student store now, and this is not new. When I was a student, we did stuff like this. We did fundraisers where we had to go door to door and sell candy bars. This is the same thing, but because of COVID, it's now gone all digital. So they send my daughter home with this thing, this little envelope saying, hey, turn this back in, you get a prize. So my daughter is, of course, demanding this. But to do that, you have to send out emails of your friends and family and stuff to this company. There's no other way to. And then they start, yep, already started this morning with all the junk mail and whatnot. Not to mention that the envelope that they sent home was just filled. It was just like a package of junk mail with coupons and I'm just like, is she going to school or is she, what kind of school is this exactly? What are you guys teaching my daughter? And again, they're teaching her how to be a fantastic consumer. She's going to buy all the things. It's scary how obsessed my children are with wealth and with money, and I'm trying to think if I was as obsessed with those things growing up. I think there certainly was, to some degree, a desire for some status symbols like the Nikes, like the Jordans. That kind of stuff I remember having, but not for very long. By the time I hit 5th, 6th grade, I was out of that, So, I don't know, maybe they'll grow out of it. My son certainly has not. Um, he was talking about my grandma, not my grandma, my mom, gosh. My mom, his grandma, has spent a lot of money helping him build up um, various card collections and stuff. And he was talking about going and selling all these cards to make some money. And I'm like, dude, think about that. Like, your grandmother has helped you invest in this hobby of yours, and now you're gonna go and I don't know. Growing up, it's something I would have never crossed my mind. And I've just never been really interested in like money and stuff. Like these people who are like super obsessed with I remember my advisor, my mentor, the guy that I really looked up to quite a bit, uh leaving our university. Like, he had people like students working under him, and he just left the university for a bigger paycheck. I'm like, how do you do this? How do you just abandon people like that just for money? And the funny thing is, like, he's like a far left Marxist, anti-capitalist, and yet, I don't know. I see. It's hard to really be that critical of these people because it's like, well, what else do you expect them to do? Exactly. That's the system that we're working within, right? And you gotta work your way up the mountain before you can chop it down or whatever. Like, climb the tree before you chop it down. That doesn't make any sense. So you chop it down from the bottom. I don't know. I was trying to think of a way to phrase that, but you get my point. Like, I don't know. I don't know. All I know is this week has really just my faith in the education system declines every day, but this week has really been a huge decline where it's like I'm ready to go and pull my kids out of school at this point. Let's see here. InfoWars host Alex Jones is responsible for damages triggered by his false claims on the Sandy Hook shooting, judge rules. Now, I find this fascinating. Fuck Alex Jones. This is fantastic. But also, really? I'm kind of shocked that he's actually being held accountable for something. Especially considering, it says responsible for damages triggered by his false claims. So it seems to be focused on things he's said. And the bar for that, it's not the incitement test, right? Is it the clear and present danger test, or is it the incitement test? Am I mixing these up? For the First Amendment thing, there's a I think the incitement test was the old one, and it's like yelling fire in a crowded theater, but I think it has to like lead to like imminent harm. Like basically, you have to go up and tell somebody like, "Hey, go and shoot that guy right now," and even that, the guy would probably be found not guilty because again the bar is just so high. So I wonder. I need to actually read this case here and read the decision because it's really quite shocking. And I wonder if it's going to set some kind of precedent for the effects of this disinformation. I mean, think about how many people have died because of all the COVID disinformation. Um, and now can we go out and start suing people because of that? Again, probably not. Probably not. But this is just, I think it's cool, but it's also raises just tons of questions about First Amendment freedom of speech related issues. And in some ways could be exciting if I think one way to combat disinformation is to actually start holding people accountable for it. It's just proving that causal relationship between somebody's words and somebody else's actions is basically impossible. So I don't know. Former President Jimmy Carter quietly marks his 97th birthday. Man, if only he were reelected for a second term, I wonder how things would have gone differently. Um, it's really interesting to see like him, compared to maybe some of the other presidents, and just how well liked he seems to be among most of the public, despite his rather unpopular presidency. I think he's just a little too humble, a little too good natured to fill that kind of role. Um, well, it's not that it's that it's just a steaming pile of shit, and he's this little, um, he just doesn't belong. I would love for him to belong, and I think that's what we need to do is elect more people like him, so that we can start to change things. But I kind of feel bad. I think he would probably do a lot. No, I was gonna say he'd do a lot better now, but no, that's probably not true at all. Because I think him and Biden are kind of similar in a lot of ways, and Biden seems to be struggling a lot as well. Apple and Disney among companies backing groups against U.S. climate bill. And tell me something I don't know. I think I've talked about this already before, but how, I mean, like everybody's talking about mansion cinema, these kinds of things, but really we need to be focusing on their donors and the people who are really making the decisions here, which are the corporate interests involved. Although from what I've seen, cinema, I think most of her backers, like some of her biggest backers, are like payroll loan groups. I'm sorry, like payday loan groups. Uh, there's like airlines, Comcast type companies. So yeah, but it's not surprising to see Apple and Disney there either. Um, right now at this point, it's looking like my guess is the infrastructure bill passes, and then a smaller social spending bill passes as well. um, but probably with a lot of the climate provisions stripped out of it, uh, and a few other things stripped out of it as well. But yeah, that's that's where we're at. So, COVID is killing rural Americans at twice the rate of people in urban areas. That could be for a number of reasons. I know my mind is immediately, well, that's because they're Republicans and they're stupid, but it could also be related to age differences as well. Rural areas tend to be older than urban areas. Oh, who am I kidding? It's because they're Republicans and they're stupid. Right? Are they really stupid? So this is what I'm writing about basically. This is kind of what I'm researching and writing about right now for this class that I'm teaching is the disinformation on social media, and specifically disinformation related to COVID and to vaccines and stuff. And I've been reading a lot of this guy. I think his name is Neil Johnson, and he's a physicist who specializes in complex systems. And he's doing a lot of um, kind of groundbreaking research, I guess, into how these complex social media systems work and stuff, and how disinformation spreads. And he has a lot of fascinating stuff to say, especially his solutions to some of these problems are just hilarious in their simplicity. Um, in terms of taking a very complex human problem and trying to solve it with an equation, but that's what he does. Uh, but one of his findings, and I think this is fascinating, and I've again talked about this a little bit before, is, and it confirms other research that I've read as well, that the vast majority of this misinformation is coming from women on social media. Why? What is going on there? And as I've read more about this, it seems to be that these are predominantly moms, and that the way that it works is like there aren't like these. I mean, there are these like COVID misinformation groups on or like anti-vaccine groups on Facebook and stuff. But for the most part, where we're seeing the actual misinformation show up is not in these groups, but is in smaller groups, like parenting groups and pet groups and these kinds of things. And it's where you might have like one or two members part of that group who just happen to be kind of connected to these anti-vaccine movements. And it's just this kind of almost like again they've described it in the past as almost like a contagious virus, the way that the misinformation works. But all it takes is this one little exposure, just one person in your little pet group or one person in your little parenting group to start spreading it, and that's kind of how it works. But to me, the fact that it's predominantly moms, I think, should really make a lot of people, I don't know, maybe start thinking about this a little differently. Because in my mind, I'm imagining, especially there was a video like a week ago of some guy like wearing like a MAGA hat, mocking some guy for wearing a mask. And in my mind, that's what most of these anti-vax people are. It's these idiots in the MAGA hats who end up dying because of it, you know? But that's not really the case. Really, the case is it's mainly moms who are fucking terrified for their kids' lives. Uneducated moms. Desperate, poor moms who, again, might have these kinds of connections to these other communities that kind of exacerbate the problem. Um, but I don't know. To me, and especially when you consider that you know, I think there was a lot of confusion early on. A lot of these moms are probably overworked, lacking sleep. I don't know. I just feel like when I learned that it's, you know, it's not some 25-year-old troll on Facebook doing this, some Trump supporter. It's that 35-year-old apolitical mom who is working three jobs and is just fucking terrified and doesn't know what to do, and sees something online that seems really convincing and persuasive and doesn't know how to critically evaluate that information. And so they share it and they like it, and it just kind of spreads as a result. Um, which another interesting finding was how uh, image based texts, so memes basically, memes are significantly more persuasive than purely text based stuff. So I think that's fascinating because a lot of the correct and accurate vaccine information that you see is purely text based. But these memes, the way that they work on us, the visual that is there just seems to trigger something within us that makes us more likely to trust it. So again, you have these kind of struggling moms, scared, um, coming across these memes on Facebook, and that's kind of how it takes off. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't bad actors, that there aren't idiots involved in this. I just think that there's probably a significant portion of the unvaccinated who are just really scared and really kind of lack. I kind of go back to how this is really just it's a result of the fundamental breakdown of the kind of community space, the kind of community ecology, the the very sense of living within a community that I think we've lost as we've all kind of siloed off, um, particularly in the last 30, 40 years or so. Whereas if we still had those strong community social bonds, I think this would be a lot less likely. But that would involve, investing in our communities and stuff. And we can't have that. We can't have that when Apple and Disney need to make sure they can keep their profits as high as possible. I fucking hate Disney, man. Disney is just the worst of the worst because of this public persona that they try to give off of being this wholesome company, and they are just the worst of the worst. And of course my daughter's a huge Disney fan. Oh man, Justice Kavanaugh tests positive for COVID but has no symptoms. Why is this news? I have no idea. They created a whole mega thread for it on the politics subreddit. But you guys fucking losers, man. You need to get a life. I'm very bitter this morning. I had to go and get some tests done and I had blood drawn, so I'm probably bitter about that. But I'm bitter about my daughter and it being cash-in day too. I'm bitter about a lot of things. California enacts law to strip badges from bad officers. So I was listening to this on NPR last night, and again, this is one of the millions of things I should probably read more about before commenting on it. But I read that California is one of only 4 states in the country that didn't already have a process in line to be able to do this. So it may seem kind of revolutionary, but apparently we're just catching up to the rest of the country. Now, perhaps the policy we've put in place is going to make the process even easier to ensure that police officers who break the law are held accountable. El Salvador just started mining Bitcoin using the energy from volcanoes. Well, headlines I never expected to read. That sounds fascinating. Really cool. It reminds me of how, from what I've read, Bitcoin is like one of the worst things to have happened to our environment in like forever. Just the amount of energy that it consumes, but perhaps that is simply propaganda put out there by traditional economic, systems that are going to be hurt by this. Banks and whatnot. But yeah, from what I understand, it's really not good. So finding alternative sources of energy besides fossil fuels would be fantastic, whether it's volcanoes or solar energy or whatever it might be. But it's also kind of frustrating because they're increasing the cost of computer parts. And honestly, this whole thing right here just, to me, it seems like magic. I know so little about this, but it really does seem like magic. Like, wait, you're creating money on a computer? Which, I mean, yeah, money is just, it's all fictional anyways, but it's just, But you actually have to like, why can't we just say, okay, here's a Bitcoin, like just pretend like it's there? Like, why do we actually have to use energy? Like, is the energy literally being transformed? Do we get like a little coin out of it? Um, I'm joking, of course, but I'm just showing you how utterly ignorant I am about this topic, how fantastical it all seems, how cool it all seems, also how destructive and wasteful it seems. But yeah, pretty freaking cool if you ask me. Flag wearing man throws Molotov cocktail into Austin Democratic headquarters. This you know, like I feel like I'm probably gonna click on it. It's gonna be like, oh, stupid Trump supporters, that kind of stuff. He left a note. It's like when you hit a parked car. It's okay if you leave a note. He apparently did leave a note. I believe the cocktail was not cocktailed enough. It did not actually ignite. Um, the flag wearing thing. I don't know. I'm always just hesitant to react too strongly to these types of stories before more details are known, because these could always very well be, some lunatic Democrat out there who's trying to bring bad press to Republicans. Uh, Although I think the likelihood of Republicans doing this kind of stuff grows each and every day. Um, so, but like, why wear a flag? I I don't know. It just sometimes it just I don't know. Fuck. I feel like I'm just gonna complain about people being dumb, and then I feel like I'm turning into my brother, who's always just seemed like a giant asshole to me, and then I'm just like, am I just a giant asshole now? Drug Enforcement Administration seizes 1.8 million fentanyl-laced pills and arrests more than 800 in nationwide sting. This actually sounds absolutely terrifying. These are pills that are made to look like legitimate pharmaceutical pills, but so like Vicodin, Percocet, but they are laced with a lethal amount of fentanyl, and one pill can kill you. And apparently, there have already been numerous overdoses as a result. Um, Now, of course, the legitimate pharmaceuticals can be just as dangerous. So, you know, but it's more the fact that people think they're taking one thing when really it's this other thing, and also that it's somebody who may not even be into drug use at all and taking it for real medical reasons, and maybe just bought it off the street because it's cheaper, and our fucking country can't even provide, the basics. The like I oh man, what was I reading? I think it was it was the Biden administration criticizing Ethiopia because there's a genocide happening in Ethiopia right now, and saying, basically, the U.S. will not forget if Ethiopia does not fulfill its fundamental duties by providing basic necessities to its citizens or something like that. And I was just like, holy fuck, we could just say the same thing about ourselves. Like, why don't you just Biden, look in the mirror and say that to yourself, because that's what we're doing. We're not providing the basic necessities for our people. We're providing a whole lot of crap that we don't need, but we're not providing the necessities like healthcare and prescription drugs. So you're gonna have probably instances where some poor old lady who couldn't afford her stuff um, is buying counterfeit drugs off of the streets and dying as a result. But yeah, pretty scary stuff. Louisiana public schools may allow parents to choose whether a child quarantines after COVID-19 exposure, but it won't really be a choice, right? I mean, in some cases it will, but in many cases it'll just be, well, fuck. As a parent, I don't have any option but to send my sick child to school where my child will get other children sick and potentially kill them. Like, I don't know. Like my daughter's been sick, and my mom's like, "Oh, it's okay, we'll watch him." And I'm like, "No, no, I am not gonna let you allow her to potentially kill you, and then have to live with that the rest of her life." Of course, we wouldn't tell her that, right? And really, it would be the adults who would be responsible for that, meaning it would be me responsible for that. So it's like, no, Mom, I'm not going to be responsible for killing you and Dad. And they're smart, and my mom knows a lot about it. It's just that she's just like, oh, the risks, and we're all vaccinated, and it's okay. And I'm just like, dude, your husband is overweight and an alcoholic and can barely breathe right now. So no, we are not gonna let your grandchildren kill you. But it's amazing to me how some people are just kind of very nonchalant about it when it involves kids for some reason. Um, but also how this kind of shit just totally ignores the fact that most parents really don't have these kinds of choices. When my uh, when my daughter was sick this week, I'm lucky in that I have the authority to cancel my class if I want to. My wife, on the other hand, if she misses work, it's fucking chaos over there because they all depend on her so much. So she really can't miss a lot of work. I can, but if I'm gone and kids are sick and it's just my wife, she doesn't really have any option but to send them to school. There's nothing for parents to do there. It seems like a pretty significant issue that you think we would have, figured out a way to deal with a long, long time ago. All right, well, I think that's going to be it from me for today, this lovely, lovely October morning. Thanks for listening or watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next week.